Hi there, my name is Charlotte, and today I'm going to do a podcast about writing in school. And we're just going to look at tips for teachers on how to get students to enjoy writing stories. So, just tell you a little bit about me. I work as a primary school teacher in London, and I'm working with a year 2 class this year. And I also worked with a year 1 class last year. And we always have this trouble with English when the kids are reading the stories and they're not really sure what they're reading. They know the words, but they're not sure what the story's about or what's happening. So the way that we try to get the kids involved and get them into the story, we read the story with them, or we go through the whole thing, and then we make a story map. And the story map is basically rewriting the whole story with pictures, and we just pick out the main parts of the story. So we did Jack and the Beanstalk last year, and with that we did Jack going to sell the cow, and then getting magic beans, returning home, Mum throwing the beans out the window, and the magic beanstalk grew. Jack climbed it, went to see the giant, and then the giant chased him, but he managed to collect a harp and some gold coins, and I think it was a goose egg at the end. And the way we did that, we got pictures, or we drew the pictures of these main points in the story around, and then we got the kids to act out each part. So the kids acted out being Jack going to sell the cow, Jack getting magic beans, and then so on and so on. So the kids actually then didn't write anything, but we read the story together and they just acted it out. And then from there, we then took it bit by bit to explain that they're going to start writing the story and just retelling it. First of all, instead of writing, they just talked to their friends and told each other verbally what the story was about. And this was quite nice because they got to use different language, and they got to hear different people using adjectives to describe things. They got to listen to people using verbs. So instead of climbing, he was moving quickly, running from, and all these lovely different adjectives and words and things that they may not be used to, or they may not use, especially for a 5 or 6 year old. And then we worked on writing simple sentences. Simple sentences are just like Jack got some magic beans, or Jack got magic beans. Very simple. And then we worked on adding adjectives to our simple sentences. So the kids were well and truly immersed in the story before they even started writing. They were acting it out, they were talking about it, getting really excited about it, and learning the story, the full story, and remembering it as well, because quite a lot of the time they forget what happened first, then next, then last. So acting it out, doing the actions, going through the story bit by bit with them, then working on verbally telling the story and looking at pictures and images, and then using their language skills to write simple sentences. And then from there on, simple sentences, we got them to write more complex sentences. Then this is where the grammar comes in. So with the grammar, we talked about adjectives. Why do we use adjectives? What are they for? They're for describing, making things interesting. And when can we use them? So you put the adjective before the noun. So you can say the boy, or the big boy, the tall boy. And then we change the name to Jack. And we say Jack was tall, and it was just to describe each other. And then if they really got stuck, we would say, how would you describe your friend? So then they would just stop and talk to each other and say, oh, I would say that you, or they would say, you are tall, short, you have blonde hair, you have blue eyes, you have green hair, etc., etc. And then again, using that language from speaking, then they are able to say their sentences out loud and then write them. So that's another thing that sometimes we forget. We like to say our thoughts out loud, and as teachers we are always saying our thoughts out loud, even if we don't even realize. So we're kind of talking to the children and talking to ourselves at the same time, and supporting the children to hear that language, supporting them to hear what they need to do, and and so on and so on. And again, the kids just get really excited about doing the work. They get excited about retelling the story, and it makes it feel a bit more, a bit more personal to them, I guess, or a bit more something that they can do. It feels like it's not such a hard job. It's just writing a simple sentence about what happened, basically. And then we add in other grammar, like such as verbs, and we talked about what verbs are, and they're the doing words, running, walking, skipping, and so on. And then we add that to our sentences. So we've got our sentence with an adjective, and now we're adding a verb, and we're making our sentence only a little bit longer because we're adding one extra word. But we want to talk about what they're doing. So Jack climbed the beanstalk. Jack climbed the very tall beanstalk, or Jack climbed the large, tall beanstalk. And then that gradually grows their vocabulary and supports them to write a fuller and longer sentence. And then we give them a little challenge and say, can you write your own sentence give them a character, maybe this way, the giant. How would you describe the giant? And give at least 3 adjectives in your sentence to describe the giant. Now, how would you describe the giant moving? Use again 3 verbs, maybe you can add 1 adjective, and then they just gradually build up on that. And we found that the children were very much engaged in the stories, they were very much engaged in the work, because we'd had prepared them basically for doing the writing. And I think it seems very simple. It seems like it's too easy, but for kids, it's actually one of the best ways to get them excited about a story, especially if they're not familiar with, or if they are really familiar with it. It's a way to help them to get re-excited about it, because sometimes they lose that excitement. They go, oh, I know this story, I know what's happening, and it's boring. But now that they get to retell it, and they get to add their own words, they get to add their own adjectives and their own ideas, and they go, oh, actually, I could say, and then they get to decide how to be creative with what they write. And then after that we help them to carry on writing more stories, and we just read more books. And we don't spend just 1 week on a book. We might spend 2 or 3 weeks, depending on what we want the children to do. And also, if we find the children are really enjoying it all, then we can take it a little bit further, or we can add, oh, maybe you pretend to be Jack and you can talk about what you did. And then they have to write as Jack, saying I, using the first person I, and then they write their story again, but in the perspective of Jack. So then they're like, oh, you're Jack today, and you're going to write your story about what happened. So you can say, I woke up at the middle of the night and I saw the beanstalk was growing outside my window, and etc., etc. So then it's giving them that different perspective and point of view in the story. And that's a way to help them grow with their writing as well, especially if they have to change how they write. They have to change some of their sentences, not just, oh, they're not telling about Jack, because now they are Jack. So it's a different way. And then we do hot seating. So hot seating is where one person pretends to be a character from the book, and the other children are asking them questions. So this is really challenging for some children, because they really have to think, oh, if I'm the giant in the story, I need to pretend to be the giant. I'm a grumpy person. How would I be feeling at this point in the story? How would I be feeling after I find out that Jack has stolen my things? And then they have to field questions from other children. So the children are like, why are you such a grumpy giant? And he has to think about, oh, I'm a grumpy because, and then they have to give a reason why. Again, this helps to support the children with their vocabulary, and they get to hear different things and lets them be creative. They don't have to write anything because it's verbal. If they wanted to they could write the questions themselves and then write the answers. But I think verbally it's more fun, and the children have less to do. They don't have to write everything, and it's more verbal. And it's giving them that chance to think about it and giving that chance to pretend and be creative and say, oh, I'm the giant today. I'm really big, I'm really strong, and I'm grumpy because Jack has stolen my goodies, and, that kind of thing. And we found that really helped the children as well, because they really actually enjoyed pretending to be the giant, or they enjoyed pretending to be Jack. And it just allows children, especially those who have trouble writing, to get a feel for how a character is and how a character is feeling, and also gives them a chance to explain their reasons. So they could say that the giant wasn't grumpy, he was actually in a good mood, and then he was grumpy because Jack decided to steal his harp and his gold and his goose, which he really loved. So it's, again, just supporting the children in that way. So all these tips, I think, really help students to get into enjoying writing stories. And then the writing actually is the last thing that they do. And again, they take it step by step and then write simple sentences. And then if they want to expand the sentences, then they can. And it's up to them what they write. And we just then give them the tools and give them the vocabulary and help them to write the sentence in the correct order. So if we read their sentence, you say, oh, you forgot the adjective. So what kind of bean is it? Or what kind of beanstalk? What kind of harp and goose? And then they can say, oh yeah, it was a golden harp. Oh, it was a giant goose. Oh, it was a tiny goose. And it's up to them to then write their adjectives in. Oh, how was Jack moving? Was he climbing? Was he running? Was he walking? Was he sneaking, creeping? And then they get different vocabulary there as well. And it's actually quite fun for them. So yeah, lots and lots of different ways and ideas to get students enjoying their writing. And that's even before they put a pen to paper. So we found that has really helped support them. I'm just trying to think what other ways, but I think that's quite a few tips already. And you can also do this at home with your kids, especially if you want them to get excited about a story and they're just like, oh, I've read the story 100 times, it's boring. Oh, okay, what would you feel if you were this character? How would you feel if you did this? And how would you feel if that happened? And then you can get them to hot seat at home. They can pretend to be this character in the book, and you can ask them questions and say, oh, well, how are you feeling today? And then they'll have to give you their reasons. And it's quite nice because it gets the children to think about different characters and different points of view, which can be quite hard sometimes, especially for a young 5-year-old, and they all want to think about me. Sometimes, not all of them. There are some really good kids who then pick it up really quickly, and then they can just switch and pretend to be, especially those who love drama. They love acting, and it's just a way for them to be expression and give their expression and give their ideas and give their comments about things, which I think is quite a lovely idea for the kids, and they really do enjoy it. So that's it for me. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. If you have any comments, then sure, leave them down below. And if you want to hear more, I'll be making some more podcasts soon. Thank you. Bye.